You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio, Phil Williams. Live in the Rightside studio, local, state, national, man. We're going to cover down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, yes, we are. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Hey, welcome to it. It's Friday, y'all. Boomer, it is Friday, bud.
Friday.
I'll have a side of fries with that too, please.
Yes.
But yeah, it is the end of the week, folks, and I know some of y'all are glad. It has been a full week. We've had great shows. I mean, interviews with Jared Hudson, Navy SEAL running for sheriff. We had Ted Nugent. That was a hoot. We've had great callers calling in. And then the content was always it seemed like we were just chock full this week. And yesterday, too, we had the open house going on here at the new Rightside studio, people coming and going while we're literally on the air. That was it was just a great week. Hey, I got a full show for you again today, too, by the way. Get that triple dipper sound effect ready, bud. So 3:30 today, you've heard him on the show multiple times, Matt Clark from the Alabama Center for Law and Liberty. Matt's going to be on the air with us talking about rogue DAs. You know, Governor DeSantis, just suspended what amounts to a Florida district attorney. They call them state's attorneys there. Just suspended him for saying he would refuse to enforce certain laws related to transgender treatments on minors. We have one here in Alabama saying he refuses to enforce laws related to abortion. What about it? Do we have the same options? We're going to talk about rogue DAs at 3:30 with Matt Clark. In the meantime, I've still got a whole bunch of triple dipper, so hit it, bud.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you have got to know. We're going to run the show on these. Number 1, come and take it. I've had this on my roster now for like 2 days. But so much content couldn't get to it. Well, I put it number 1 today, and I even added a little bit to it. Number 1, come and take it. What happens when the government basically becomes more oppressive or leans forward on the idea of oppressing than they ever should? Well, it's not good. And so the response, come and take it. We'll talk about that as number 1 of the Triple Dipper. I got a rack of stories you're going to be interested in. Number 2, leaning into that conversation that we're going to have with my friend Matt Clark from the Center for Law and Liberty, I got a whole section there on rogue DAs. What happens when a district attorney gets sworn into office to protect and defend, to prosecute the crimes, and they become more, lenient on the criminals than they do in terms of helping the victims? Well, we're going to talk about rogue DAs. That's number 2. And then number 3, I'm calling it a barrel full of monkeypox. A barrel full of monkeypox. Did you know that last night, literally just last night, President Biden declared a public health emergency on monkeypox? Do you even know anybody that has monkeypox? Did you know that out of a population of, where are we? What's our population here? Like 300 and some odd million in the United States? I'm not even sure. It's huge. 6,600 roughly cases of monkeypox. But it's a public health emergency. Anybody died? Not that I'm aware of. Anybody hospitalized? Maybe a few. What's going on? We'll talk about it. Number 3 on the Triple Dipper, a barrel full of monkeypox. Lots of things happening, too. We're going to keep our eyes on the news. China making new threats. So if something breaks on this that we need to talk about, as usual, we'll certainly break in. I will point out, too, yesterday was a coup. There was a news story that we broke on Rightside from 1819 News about this heinous murder kidnapping situation down in Tallapoosa County, with the bodies being found inside the trailer, the little girl who chewed through the ropes to get away after being chained to a bed for a week. That happened just in the last few days. Well, on a whim, I texted the author of the article and the reporter, and he got back to me, and within minutes we had him on the air to break the news that we just discovered yesterday, that the perpetrator was an illegal alien who was here not only illegally but had been deported once before. I'm telling you, folks, this Biden border policy, it's more than just, oh, it's a strain on the finances and resources. Oh, it's difficult. People are coming here for a better life. No, it's causing mayhem in some places, literal mayhem. So we'll cover down on that news if it breaks anymore. But listen, my monologue. So here's the deal. As I open up the show, let me just say this. Last night I was speaking to a group at dinner, and I told them a story that I'm about to relate to y'all. It's a life lesson that I learned years ago when I was in the swamps at Army Ranger School. It deals with the why of the fact that I am now doing radio. But before I do that, let me just lay the foundation. So you all hear Boomer's voice on the air all the time, right? He's doing an amazing job running the board, keeping all the tech straight around here. Don't let it go to your head, man. I see you over there. But the cool thing is I've known him for much of his life because his family has been close friends of my own for many years. His folks have been there for us many times, and they're some of the people from whom we sought prayer and counsel more than once. His dad even designed the Rightside Radio logo, just so you know. So one night, Charlene and I were having dinner at a local barbecue place with his parents, and his dad asked me for some insight regarding a decision he was in the middle of. But it reminded me of a personal story, a lesson that I had learned years ago. But as I related my story to him to get to the point, I realized the conversation we were having, his question, my answer, was as much for me as it was for him. It was a moment in which I realized that God sort of brought back an old lesson to my mind, and it has not left me since. Why do we do what we do? Can we get it done? What is the calling in the midst of that? So here's the backstory. In 1991, I got orders to go to Army Ranger School. I was in my 20s. I was full of vinegar. Ranger School was a dream for me. It was a true bucket list item. I wanted to wear that Ranger tab on my left shoulder so bad I could hardly stand it. So as a young lieutenant, I won the right to go off to the Ranger Training Brigade, and I headed out, Fort Benning, Georgia. I could write a book about what to do, but most of it would actually be on what not to do, let me just tell you. But back when I went through the course, by the way, there were still 4 phases. And I'll tell you this, too. Anytime you meet an old Ranger, ask them how hard it was to go through the school back when they were in, and they'll tell you it was the hardest. Just because when I went through, it was hard. Anyway, back when I went through the course, there were still 4 phases. Several weeks at the Benning phase where they weed you out, wear you out, train you in hand-to-hand combat, small unit tactics, and validate your individual soldier skills. Then came the mountain phase in North Georgia where I got frostbite on my toes, then to the swamps in North Florida, and then out to the desert in Utah. Every phase had its own specific training, its own epic level challenges, but what most folks don't know is that Ranger School, it's certainly skill and knowledge heavy, but it's also a leadership course. And to graduate, you have to successfully lead a series of missions in various environments. And to add to my fun and enjoyment, it was winter, January to be exact. 450 men entered the course on day 1. 250 made it past that point. 98 are in my graduation photo. But at one point in the swamps of Florida, I was exhausted to the point of even hallucinating. But I was in charge of an ambush patrol. I had to pass it. It was a leadership, skill-oriented grading exercise. None of my guys could function. Dudes were literally falling asleep standing up while I was trying to brief the operations order. Nothing was working, and I realized that we were going to miss the SP time, the start of the mission. And I thought to myself in the early hours of that cold, wet dawn in the swamps that I was about to fail Ranger School after all that I had been through. So I remember distinctly, I can even picture where I was. I was standing there feeling miserable, out of control, and unsure what else I could do. And I just talked to God for like 3 seconds. I mean, I suppose it could be categorized as a prayer, but it was really just me conversing with him, straight up, no flowery language, no opening lines, no amen. I remember saying out loud, I said, well, God, if you want me to be a ranger, then I will. And if you don't, then I'll go home, be proud of that too. Well, what happened next, y'all, is more than I can describe. I kid you not. I suddenly had the biggest wave of relief wash over me like I've never felt before or since. It felt like someone literally poured warm water over my head because I literally warmed up in the winter, in the wet swamps. I think I even chuckled out loud, which probably made some of the guys who were actually awake think that I had finally lost it. But then everything just came online. Guys suddenly got energy, an alertness they didn't have before. The men rucked up, they locked and loaded. We hit the SP time. We laid on the ambush site for a perfectly executed set of actions on the objective. And the long story short is, yes, I passed the swamp phase. I went on to pass the desert phase. And then Charlene came to Fort Benning and pinned on my Ranger tab. My point in that story, what I told Boomer's dad that night at dinner, and what I told folks last night, is that I learned at that moment, in that 3-second talk with God, what it means to cease striving and know that He is God. If He opened a door, then my scratching and clawing and fretting and ducking and diving is my making a situation more difficult than it had to be. Sometimes, sometimes I believe my role in the opportunities presented by a God that I really believe in is just to do. Just do. Now, I'll be candid, and I'll note that I'm not always good at that. If you haven't already noticed, I'm a type A personality, and I don't sit still well. I'm prone to say things like sleep is highly overrated, or scars are just symbols of an active lifestyle. I'd rather be a sheepdog than a sheep any day. But there's times when I have to recognize that God's intent is even more than what I think it is. I went to Ranger School to be an Army Ranger. I came away, yes, as an Army Ranger, but with lessons about my own limitations, my own abilities, but more than anything, my own better appreciation for the fact that I serve a big God who sometimes swings open a door and says, just do. And that, my friends, is why at this stage in my life, with every reason not to do so, I'm hosting a daily radio show. Not because I sought an opportunity to spend hours preparing for hours talking. Not because I thought there was some cool factor, but because an opportunity dropped into place, and after much prayer and deliberation, I realized that my role here was to just do. I mean, if God wanted me to be a ranger, I would, and if He didn't, I'd go home, be proud of that too. If God wanted me to be a radio guy, then I would, and if He didn't, then I would go home, be proud of that too. My impression, He's not done here. So my role, my mission, my reason for doing it is because my job here at Rightside is just do. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Well, I told that last night, and I thought, I'm pretty sure that's my monologue for tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I got to head down that road. And y'all, I'm serious. I felt the wave of relief wash over me like you wouldn't believe, because at that particular moment, I quit trying to just do it all in my own steam. I quit trying to just make it happen. And I gave it back to Him, and He gave it right back to me. My role was just to go do. He had the end result already in His hands. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Y'all stay tuned. We got more. are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama, solid, conservative, and just plain right. So we're going to get down into the weeds here in a minute on things that are happening in government, by the way, in government, that caused me to have the come and take it moniker given to number one on the Triple Dipper. Before I do that, I got to tell you, listen, the Right Side Radio website is getting a lot of traction. The Ted, we were talking earlier, Boomer. The Ted Nugent interview is now the top downloaded podcast. Is that right?
Top downloaded podcast.
That's cool. So, and we're like over 67,000 now on downloads, right?
Yes, sir.
So here's the thing, folks. If you ever miss a part of the show, if there's ever a time when the show doesn't hit the mark for your schedule or whatever else, you can always pick it up afterwards. The podcast is like a huge opportunity here. We break the show down into segments. Boomer sits here after the show. He cuts it all up like basically into manageable pieces, puts it out there. Birdman grabs it, uploads it to every version of podcasting known to man, and they're all out there. And tons of people are downloading this podcast now. So you can check that out. Or if you hear an interview or somebody tells you about a piece that you missed, or you want to hear it twice, or you want to send it to somebody, you can grab those links and use them, reuse them, listen to them while you're driving, whatever the case may be. Rightsideradio.org. That's the website. So rightsideradio.org. If you listen to our podcast, here's my request. A lot of times they have a way to rate the podcast, and that would be huge because what that does is it helps it trend even more. So if you've given it a good rating, which I hope you would, if you give it a good rating, then other people are going to get a chance to sort of see that, kind of like trending like on any other social media form, where the more it gets rated or has likes or stars, so to speak, people pick it up. Other things on there, I'll just tell you right now, there's like right now, the show is live streaming. So we are, I can't dress for radio anymore. Which Charlene gets on to me when I joke and say, I have to wear pants. Yes, you have to wear pants. I wore pants before. It's not a problem. But anyway, the bottom line is the show is live streaming right now. You can see inside the Right Side studio, me and Boomer here at our stations doing our thing. And when we have interviewers, they're on there too. But that's all on the website as well. Go to the website, click on the tab that says live and podcasts, and there's the video thing. Click it. We're on. It's a little surreal. I'm sitting here watching myself right now. I kind of turn to my left and like, okay, which is not quite in sync, Boomer. It's kind of weird. I move my hands while I'm talking, look over and see my hands move after I've already talked. It's like, wow, what just happened?
Just a little bit of a delay.
Yeah, just a tad. Like, just make sure Phil's had his coffee because that can kind of freak you out. So, yeah, anyway, all that's there, folks. Rightsideradio.org. Okay, let me ask you a question. Number one, Triple Dipper, come and take it. Come and take it. We got that. Do we still have that? Hey, Boomer, do we still have that audio clip of Ted Nugent's "Come and Take It"? Do you have that? You do have it. Like, how quickly at hand do you have it? Like, you can play it right now. I love it when he loves it when I put him on the spot like this. Hit it if you got it. Do you have it?
Come and take it.
Yeah.
Come and take it.
That's right. We've got theme song for this piece of the Triple Dipper.
Come and take it.
Oh, how long does it go like that? Yeah, it does. I've listened to it more than once, but I can't remember. All right. So yeah, come and take it is the theme for this part of the Triple Dipper. What does it mean? Where did this phrase come from? Well, if you're not familiar with the story from which the phrase arises, it's the story of the Spartans standing in a place called the Hot Gates of Thermopylae. It was a narrow pass in the mountains. The mighty Persian army was coming across, I think it's called the Hellespont, coming across the Hellespont, a narrow bit of water that was the closest way to come over to what is now known as modern Greece. Greece at the time was a bunch of city-states. They weren't a nation. They were a bunch of semi-unified city-states. Each one had their own governance, their own mores, their own societal, cultural issues. And the Spartans were one of those. The Athenians were one of those. Anyway, the mighty Persian army is coming over to conquer all of known Greece. And they came to this place that was in a narrow mountain pass that was called the Hot Gates at Thermopylae. And Spartan King Leonidas literally was not allowed to rally the army without the approval of his Senate. They wouldn't give the approval, but he did have authority to take at least 300. So he rallied up his best 300, and he took them, and they stood in the Hot Gates. And because of the narrow pass, the Persian army, didn't matter how big they were, they couldn't get through because the pass was so narrow. Those 300 blocked it, and they blocked it for days. And they just took a toll like you wouldn't believe. And it's a true story, by the way. There are certain parts of it now that are, becoming part of historical lore, and you begin to wonder how much has been embellished. But there are a couple of quotes that are real. One was Dianakes, one of Spartan leaders, who, when he was told that the arrows of the Persian army were so great that they would block out the sun, he apparently said, "Well, that's good. Then we'll fight in the shade today." That's cool. But the other one was when the Persian emissary told Leonidas to throw down their weapons, and his response was, "You come and take them." From that, we get the phrase "molan labe," which is the Greek for "come and take it." Number one of the Triple Dipper, come and take it. What happens when your government steps in and becomes somewhat oppressive and begins to look at you as the problem and themselves as the solution? Come and take it. Number one of the Triple Dipper. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll talk all about it. Y'all stay tuned. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Man, we're spanning south of Birmingham, north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. Solid conservative, just plain right. That was it's like Ted Nugent week around here. Boomer's all fired up over there at his desk. All right, number one on the Triple Dipper. Come and take it. Come and take it. What is going on when you see strange things happening, and right now, especially the federal government, but oftentimes too, you see things in state government, you look at it and go, hang on a second, we're not the problem. Now, I understand crime happens and it may be a state prosecutor that prosecutes the crime. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is the posture of government that automatically assumes the wrongs of society and basically begins taking punitive action before anything detrimental has even happened. I'm not talking about a lack of preparedness, y'all. I'm not saying police officers shouldn't get trained. That's not what I'm saying. Those are pure functions of government, and I get it. I'm talking about basically choosing the winners and the losers in life and leaning in hard to, and I'll have to use the word oppressively, put the thumb on certain aspects of society. And too often right now what we're seeing is it's the conservative side of society that's getting the shaft in the governmental action. Classic case. You ready for this? And I've got two articles on it, but the first one came off the Post Millennial, dated August 2nd. Today's the 5th, so 3 days ago. August 2nd, Post Millennial. Breaking. Project Veritas reveals FBI lists the Gadsden flag, the Second Amendment, Revolutionary War imagery as extremist symbols. Okay, if you're not familiar, the Gadsden flag is the yellow flag that has the coiled snake that says, "Don't tread on me." Last I checked, at least one state. I know a guy that has a Virginia license tag on his truck. It's a yellow "Don't tread on me" tag, officially issued by his state. Does that mean he's an extremist for having it? It's issued by his state. All right. On Tuesday, Project Veritas released documents from the FBI outlining symbols they say are commonly used by, quote, anti-government or anti-authority violent extremists. The leaked document obtained through an FBI whistleblower lists numerous symbols, historic references, common phrases, and military networks that militia violent extremists, end quote, may use or associate with. Here's the actual quote from the document. You ready? The following symbols are used by anti-government or anti-authority violent extremists, specifically militia violent extremists, MVE. MVE symbols are found on propaganda, online platforms, memes, merchandise, group logos, flags, etc. Widespread use of symbols and quotes from American history, especially the Revolutionary War. And it goes on to say, while they don't necessarily say that just the symbol itself is automatic evidence of illegal activity or indicator of prone to violence, they go on to then to list the symbols, though, that they should watch out for. Things like 2A, standing for Second Amendment, with the FBI saying militia violent extremists often justify their existence with the Second Amendment. How about things like the right to bear arms, warrior culture, military themes, both historical and contemporary, with the examples of Spartans in Valhalla and Molan Labe, which translates to "come and take it" from the Greek. The document also lists a number of historic symbols, including the Gadsden flag, the Liberty Tree, the Betsy Ross flag, as well as Revolutionary War imagery from the American Revolution that gave the nation its freedom, and uses of common phrases, things like "when tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty," or "a well-regulated American militia," or "I will not comply." All I'm saying is this. Those are historical, those are patriotic, and those are, by the way, not necessarily anything to do with being what do they call it, a militia violent extremist. I can't help it if somebody has something on their truck, like a sticker on the back that says they're a 3%er. So what? So they're automatically a violent extremist? Listen, sitting right here, I just told you the story about the Spartans. Uh-oh, look out, I said that. Saying Molan Labe, come and take it. Uh-oh, I said that. If you're looking at the screen right now on the live broadcast of the show, in the top shelf of the little shelves on the wall behind me, there's a Liberty Tree flag. How about that, from the Revolutionary War? How about the fact that, I've got a hat at home with a picture of a Spartan helmet that says Molon Labe on it. Listen, this is a big deal. When the FBI now somewhere in there, I have to wonder. As I read this article, I could not help but think, why did that piece not say, and also watch out for things like the BLM flag, or Antifa's anarchy symbols, or for people wearing black hoods and all black gear and carrying trash can shields as they march downtown and burn your buildings. Where's that? Nowhere in there. It's all about the conservative, patriotic, God-fearing, leaning on the things that founded this nation. Oh, that's the violent extreme. Oh, we're the ones burning the buildings down. Is that what I'm hearing now? Well, Ted Cruz took issue with this. So the next story I've got comes from townhall.com, dated yesterday. Headline, "What are y'all doing?" Cruz scorches FBI director for targeting patriotic symbols. So this was a great article. In fact, I'm so glad he did this. Everything that I was thinking as I read the first article, he asked or said in the hearing that's quoted in the second article. It says in Thursday's Senate Judiciary Committee hearing with FBI Director Christopher Wray, Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz took Wray to task for the Biden administration's politicalization of the Bureau that's been turned into a weapon against conservatives. See what I'm talking about? This is my point. This is my point. The come and take it, the theme here, come and take it, is a direct result of the leaning forward posture against conservatism that we're too often seeing in an executive branch being headed by liberals. To illustrate his concerns, Cruz brought up, and there it was, the same domestic terrorism symbols guide that I just read you about, that lists things like the Gadsden flag, the Betsy Ross flag, the Gonzales battle flag, the one that says come and take it, has a picture of a cannon, and listed those as being examples of violent extremism. Here's his quote. He says, quote, "Now that's fairly remarkable that the Betsy Ross flag in the FBI's indication is indicative of militia violent extremism because among other people who have been publicly alongside the Betsy Ross flag, we have President Barack Obama, who was sworn in underneath two Betsy Ross flags. And not just President Obama, we have President Biden, who was sworn in under Betsy Ross flags." And then he shows the pictures. He said also on this list is the Gadsden flag. He says, now the state of Virginia, I just said this a minute ago, didn't I? The state of Virginia has a license plate with the Gadsden flag. And he says, as a Texan, I was struck by the fact that you have the Gonzales battle flag, the come and take it flag, as indicative of being a violent extremist militia. He said, I'm going to go ahead and self-report to you right now that every day in the Senate, I wear my boots that have the Gonzales battle flag on the back of them. And he picked up his boots and put them on the dais. He said, Director Wray, what are y'all doing? This makes no sense. Here's the cluelessness. This is the lack of leadership that we're seeing right now. The FBI director could only offer that he wasn't familiar with the document. So this story broke several days later. FBI Director Christopher Wray. It broke several days. You cannot tell me that your media folks didn't pick up on the fact that this story, Project Veritas broke this story, and the director of the FBI was going to be coming to testify before Congress the next day or two after, and he didn't bother to familiarize himself with it or to inquire where it came from or why. I guess plausible deniability here says, hey, if you know nothing, you can't say nothing. Well, that's what it sounds like. But Cruz did not stop there. He pointed out the FBI chose not to include things like Antifa or things like Black Lives Matter. They just identify patriotic Americans as being suspect. So, folks, I'm telling you, come and take it. What we're seeing here is more than what we should be seeing from government as they target certain mindsets. There's nothing's happened. Nothing's gone wrong. If anything, why aren't they targeting the people who actually burned down the buildings? Story from the Epoch Times. Change the subject, but in the same vein. Come and take it. IRS stockpiles more than 5 million rounds of ammunition. What? Now, if you're not aware that literally the IRS, they do have law enforcement capability. They have like 2,100 law enforcement officers. So to some degree, I get it. But what we found here is that most recently, the IRS has just gotten a budget boost to hire upwards of 80,000 new audit and analysts And now we're also finding out in a storyline here from the Epoch Times dated August 1st, the IRS has stockpiled 5 million rounds of ammunition and spent over $725,000 on bullets just this year, according to Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, who has a bill now to block further ammunition purchases by the agency. He's not going to get that bill through, but the reality is there should be questions asked and answered. So with them spending $750,000, you also reflect back, and I remember this, there was a 2018 report from the Government Accountability Office that said that the IRS's Criminal Investigation Division, that does have 2,100 officers, had stockpiled 5 million rounds of ammunition. And not just there, the governmental agencies that are also stockpiling weapons and ammo, it seems like, are the Environmental Protection Agency, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. I mean, maybe they've got facilities to guard. Maybe I don't know. Smithsonian Institution has 620 armed special agents. But what I'm saying here is 5 million rounds of ammo with the IRS. Whoo. Boomer, you got me a call, brother, on line one. Hey, it was Victor from Huntsville. Hey, Victor, Phil Williams on Rightside. How you doing, sir?
I'm great. This is Victor Lima. How you doing, Phil?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How you?
I'm great. So, talking about violent extremism and these symbols and everything, wait until they read the Declaration of Independence. You know, I mean, I talked to a few people on social media, and one guy said, "Well, no, that was with the British." I'm like, "Are you crazy?" I'm like, the people that wrote it were British. They weren't Americans yet. You know,
that's a great point.
The context. You know, the context of that, and they're like, "Well, that was okay because they were declaring that against the British." You know, and I'm like, "No, they were declaring it against their own government." You know, that's the whole point of the Declaration, is to say, like, hey, when your government goes terribly wrong and off the rails, don't take any action, you know, lighthearted, just kind of seriously go into overthrowing your government. You really got to consider what you're doing. But the Declaration essentially says, like, when they go completely off the rails, it's time for men to stand up.
Yeah. Well, and you're exactly right. And by the way, that was the context. It was a declaration of independence from their own government. You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
They said, we want to let go of you because we don't like what you're doing. You're putting soldiers in our homes. You know, it lays out many different points of here's what the king is doing. And we said we no longer want a king. And so if the government starts acting like a king, that's not the way our Constitution is established. That means they've gone off the rails. They've walked away from our Constitution, which is the authority. It's not the people in charge that are the authority. It's the Constitution that's the authority.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting too is there's no balance. I mean, if you looked at it and said, okay, I guess maybe they're going to try and say certain things, or maybe like giving them reasons to alert, and they also included Antifa and BLM and others who actually are violent extremists, you might feel like there's at least some balance in their approach. But when they start targeting purely the patriotic and conservative viewpoints and symbology, that also seems to indicate there's a complete bias on their part, wouldn't you think?
Completely. Complete prejudice. They only see one side.
Yeah.
All they want is power. It's a complete power grab, Phil. And they've walked away from the Constitution they swore an oath to. They all need to read it, and they need to read the Declaration of Independence when they read it, because the Constitution ties directly back to the Declaration of Independence. They're inseparable.
All right, man. Listen, Victor Lima, I'm up against a break, brother. I got to do it, but appreciate you as always, and have a great day, man.
Hoo-ah.
All right, hoo-ah.
Hoo-ah, you too. Bye.
All right, Boomer, take us to a break. We'll do that right now. I got more on this. We're going to lap over the top of the hour, I guarantee you. Come and take it. I got a story right here. Justice Department suing the state of Idaho. Why is that? Or how about this? Did you know that the Capitol Police in D.C. are trying to hire their own prosecutor so they can be both the arresting and the prosecuting authority? Not supposed to work like that. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama. Solid conservative, just plain right. We got somebody held on during the break, and I certainly appreciate that. Let me jump right to it. Hey, it's Steve from Tennessee. Steve, how you doing, man?
Hey, Phil, I'm doing fine. I wanted to comment about this extremist thing, back to something you talked about actually on Monday, where they're using their version of what's an extremist, to weed people out of the military. And to me, what they're doing by using the vaccine and who wouldn't take it, those people are generally people that cling to the Constitution, the very thing we swear an oath to protect the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Every single person comes in, raises their hand for that. And that's the very thing they're using to kick them out. And to me, what it comes to me, it's like what the Nazis did when they lined up the men they thought were Jewish and said, drop your pants, we want to see if you're circumcised. It's
Wow.
the same thing. They are cleaning house. They're doing it on purpose. And it started, it started with Obama. I watched it happen. It started with chaplains. You couldn't be a chaplain. You couldn't do what your cross told you to do because that was going to violate somebody's conscience. So you had to stuff it. And I had two that worked for me that got out because of that.
Yeah.
And so now you've got this going down, and I think they're trying to find everybody in there that they can that is a constitutional clinger, if you want to call it that.
I'll call it
Those are the
that.
people I'd rather be in the foxhole with, but that's just me.
That's exactly right. Clinging to our Bibles and guns, right? I mean, I look at it too, and Steve, it almost feels like there's like an air of desperation, like get as much done as you can because they might stop us eventually. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's what they're doing. I think they're trying to run as many people off and knowing that most of them won't come back.
Wow. Well, you know what? I don't disagree.
They're also running people off. Listen, they're running off, like my kid that's in there now, people that would be inclined to be that way because they've been raised that way. I heard this, that most of the people that sign up are coming from the South. And guess what? Hardly anybody's signing up. Well, duh.
Yeah.
They're looking at mom and dad and saying, I don't want to be in this.
Yeah, I mean, right now that the Army recruiting can't hit any milestones, they're having to lower their milestones because they're not meeting mission. They're 40% below the mark that they had set for this year. Meanwhile, they're hiring 80,000 IRS auditors. I mean, what the heck?
Yeah, that scares me. That scares me, man.
Well, when they weaponize the IRS.
Well, it's like Pelosi wanting to put Capitol Police in Florida. Pardon me?
Yeah, I hadn't heard that one, but I need to go out now and research that one.
Look it up. She did. She did this. They were proposing. I think DeSantis shut it down, but she was proposing to put an outpost of the Capitol Police in Florida several months back. I mean, back around the time frame when all this January 6th committee and all that stood up. That was something that she proposed. You can find it.
Man, Steve. I mean, it gets thicker, but you know what? This is where you have to have the attitude to come and take it. This is where we have to be willing to say, you know what, that's wrong. Like the one that I'm going to get to in a few minutes, where the ATF agent showed up at the door just to check and see whether the guy's guns were actually in his house. No warrant.
I saw this.
Yeah.
I saw this on the news. Yeah.
And that's a great place to say, sorry, sir, but the answer's no.
Yep.
Anyway, Steve, appreciate you, man. Thanks so much.
Sir.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Yeah, Steve's always got good commentary. And by the way, I know Steve was working with Boomer on sound quality for the phones. You're welcome to send a message to the show, by the way, if there's something about we had one caller yesterday that for some reason the volume dropped off, and then we feel like we're trying to tweak our phones to make sure they're tight. So Boomer's over here hitting the dials and running the tests on it. But I think we're good. He sounded good to me, Boomer, on that one. Are you feeling good about it? If you could see his face right now.
We're working on it.
A work in progress. Well, listen, I got a lot more on this, but Steve makes great points. It's the constitutional clingers. Well, I'll take that title. I love that. Constitutional. Clinging to our guns and Bibles is what Obama accused us of, like that was some kind of an insult. I got news. I got both, and they're usually both close by. Folks, I'm not through with this topic. We're going to do more on this. I got the ones I didn't even get to because Steve's call was so good. I got the next thing coming up here about Idaho getting sued by the DOJ for daring to pass an abortion law. Or how about the Capitol Police hiring their own prosecutor? Or how about New York deciding it's going to check your social media before you can have a gun permit? Or how about the ATF showing up on your door with a checklist just to make sure you really do have those guns in your house? What the heck? Come and take it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here in the Rightside studios. Man, we're covering down on the issues. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Blanketing North Alabama, saving the world one soundbite at a time, I like to say. Well, listen, I'm in number one of the Triple Dipper. Come and take it. Generated a few calls. And listen, I'm going to tell you, I'm extremely leery of heavy-handed government. Now, I recognize that government has policing authority, and it has to. That's part of the good order and discipline of society, is to make sure that the bad are prosecuted and that the bad are, by the way, arrested and stopped. But there's more to it than that. What I'm looking at right now is when the heavy hand of government overreaches, when it puts the thumb on people, when it decides who the winners and losers are, not based upon criminal activity, but on, I don't know, a difference of opinion, an intent, a perception, or how about the fact that they just don't like the way you or your state is doing something. Story on the Daily Wire, dated 3 days ago, August 2nd. Justice Department sues to block Idaho's pro-life law in the first suit since the Dobbs ruling. You can't tell me there's not a predisposition here. They were waiting to see what would happen. Now, Alabama's law, by the way, is almost a direct match to Idaho's. Idaho passed their law after the overturning of Roe v. Wade by the Dobbs v. Jackson healthcare case out of Mississippi. The Department of Justice, it says in Daily Wire, sued the state of Ohio on Tuesday over its near-universal ban on abortions, the first lawsuit of its kind. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced the lawsuit in a press conference on Tuesday afternoon. The Biden administration's chief prosecutor claimed the Idaho law illegally restricts access to abortion. How about this? The Idaho law, which takes effect August 25th, it's going to make it a felony to perform an abortion. That's what it does here in Alabama, by the way. And the governor said this amounts to federal meddling. The governor said the federal government is looking to find conflict where none exists because the Supreme Court just finished saying that there was no constitutional authority vested in the Supreme Court to have made its prior rulings on Roe and determined that there was some constitutional right to an abortion. Therefore, if they don't have the authority in the absence of congressional action, what you're looking at is that the Constitution currently says under the 10th Amendment that whatsoever has not been a power enumerated to the federal government is therefore devolved to the states. And Idaho said, okay, we're going to pass a law. And the federal government says, no, you're not. And so now under Merrick Garland in the Biden administration, the intent is to sue the good people of Idaho for daring to exercise what the Supreme Court and, oh, by the way, the Constitution of the United States says they certainly have a right to do. I don't like it, but there are some states that have pro-abortion laws. Why are they allowed to make a pro-abortion law, but yet you can't have an anti-abortion law? If the states have the rights to some level of self-determination, why is it that the targeting is only in one direction? If they are allowed to make a pro-abortion law, then by virtue of that, there has to be the opportunity to also have states that have an anti-abortion law. If you're going to say that states can't meddle in the realm of abortion, then you have to go after states on both sides of the aisle, but they're not doing that, are they? It's the thumb of big government pressed down upon who they've determined should be the winners or the losers. In this case, they believe the losers are once again the conservatives who are pro-life. How about that? I got another one. Before I do that, though, I got a call. Hey, it's Sparky from Harvest on line one. Sparky, how you doing, brother?
I'm awesome, Phil, and happy Friday to you and Boomer. Great show. I have to stand back from it every now and then, and I think politicians in Congress particularly, they're obliged to speak in very soft and subtle terms and never exactly yell at somebody who's clearly a liar, a dishonest manipulator, a crooked official. It's just not done. It's not, at least not done by conservatives anyway. But I never forget that these people in Washington are at war against half of the United States.
Yeah.
They are at war. Everything they do by weaponizing the FBI, by completely ignoring the Supreme Court at this point. And to speak to your last segment, they wish to destroy everything and everybody with a conservative, Republican, Judeo-Christian foundational belief. And if we kid ourselves to think, well, this is politics and they ebb and they flow. Well, they do ebb and they flow historically, but the pendulum has swung so unbelievably far left and socialist to beyond the point of totalitarianism, outrageous power being enforced by and weaponizing the Department of Justice, the FBI, the CIA against Americans, not worrying all the where thousands and thousands and thousands of illegals coming across the border are coming from,
Yeah.
and what diseases they have against us. And I tell you, there's, in my opinion, never been a more important election than the one coming up, and then the one again in 2024. We're going to go too far down, and then it won't even pendulum won't ever swing back again. And that's kind of where we're at. We can't get complacent.
Yeah.
And when people hear about the red wave in November and they get complacent and they sit at home and don't go and vote, they're going to screw up like they did in 2009.
Yeah, folks who vote on the red side of the ticket had better get to the polls, because I don't care if they think I live in a red state. The only thing I can do is impact Alabama. We're going to be safe. Don't assume anything. Go provide the overwhelming evidence that we're a red state, and oh, by the way, add to the fray by doing so. But I think you're exactly right. This is half the United States is being deemed a target in many ways. And we're not so far removed from the days of Lois Lerner weaponizing the IRS. Remember that? Go ahead.
Not at all. And now when you talk about the IRS having uniformed enforcement thugs,
yeah,
and controlling millions and millions of rounds of ammunition, I'll tell you what, the conservatives who have been steadily stockpiling weapons and whatnot, in the spirit and the original meaning of the Second Amendment, it is not just to defend their home against intruders. It's to be prepared to go against a tyrannical, illegal, immoral, and unjust government. And I think the people inside the Washington D.C. Beltway think it'll never happen. They're pushing it, buddy. They're pushing it.
Well, let's hope it doesn't come to that, man. But hey, I appreciate your input, Sparky, as always, brother. You have a good weekend. All right.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. All right, listen. I continue on this theme. I'm gonna try and wrap this up, because I'm gonna move to another segment here in a few minutes, just prior to my phone call with Matt Clark at the bottom of the hour. But there's another story I've got here off a red state. So I'm in the come and take it. I'm in the mode right now where I'm giving you evidence of the big hand of big government deciding, because it's so big and believes in itself more than anything else, believing that it's not there for you, it's there for itself. Right, what's what we're seeing right now? Big government is scared to death of not being allowed to be big government. So big government is literally lashing out to try and put everybody in their place so they can be allowed to be big government. Capitol Police pursue unconstitutional scheme to hire their own prosecutor. Story off a red state, dated August 2nd. I hadn't seen this anywhere else, but here it is. It says, if you thought Nancy Pelosi's questionable creation of the January 6th Select Committee was bad, then the United States Capitol Police just set aside its beer and attempt to best her. There's an image. According to the Daily Wire, the Capitol Police is looking to hire its own prosecutor, an unprecedented and certainly unconstitutional move. So the job ad asked for people to respond to a request to hire a special assistant U.S. attorney located in the Capitol Police District offices in Washington, D.C. It says a successful candidate will also work under the direct supervision and authority of the Washington U.S. Attorney's Office. And it goes on to point out the conflict of interest is apparent immediately. Prosecutors are supposed to be disconnected from the entities they pursue. In this case, the Capitol Police reports directly to the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, meaning the Speaker of the House would conceivably have some control over a prosecutor used to target other members of Congress. Can you imagine? The Capitol Police are not just there to protect the Capitol from outsiders. They're there also to address issues that occur by the insiders. But if Nancy Pelosi has not only the authority to direct the movements of the Capitol Police, but they also have their own prosecutor, then she technically has the judge and the jury in her hands, if you know what I mean. So of course, the big idea here, the big question is why. And the article goes on to say the idea is they need their own prosecutor because the types of cases they deal with does not hold water. The DOJ already exists. It's been dealing with those cases since the inception. So what suddenly changed? What suddenly changed, it says, is the idea that January 6th defendants, most of whom are charged with petty crimes like parading, are so specialized that not even the normal DOJ office can handle them. And the simple answer here is also the correct one, probably. It says, the Capitol Police is controlled by Pelosi, who made sure to put her political operatives in positions of power over the department. An in-house prosecutor would be a complete violation of the separation of powers. Moving on, wrapping this up, I've got a story here that you've already heard before. After the city of New York lost their case at the Supreme Court on how they were handling gun permits, requiring you to have to show, what was the phrase they had to show? That you had a special need in some way to be able to have a carry permit. They created another debacle. They rushed back out and revised their laws, and now they have one that, among other things, requires you to give them the last 3 years of all your social media. Now, what if your social media is handled by someone else? What if your social media is part of your business? What if your social media is something you haven't been on, or for that matter, you've had a life change since then, or for that matter, if you were hacked? But now you got to show them your social media. What kind of things do you say in your off time to allow you to have a gun? We must know. Why? Because the goal here is this will allow the state of New York to determine an applicant's, quote, good moral character, which is now a prerequisite to obtaining a firearm. Who decides what's good moral character? The same people that are allowing gay pride fetish parades to walk down the street and drag queen story times? Good moral character because I said something about the Second Amendment or I had the Gadsden flag tag on my car? Good moral character to get a gun permit in New York. Last one I've got. I'll stop with this one. The Truth About Guns is a website where you can read stories that impact Second Amendment issues, and they have a story here that ought to curl your hair. It's dated back to July 19th. In this particular story, in Delaware, 2 ATF agents and a Delaware police trooper showed up at a man's house in vests, fully marked, showed their badges, but they went to the door, and when he answered the door, he said, "Can I help you?" They didn't have a warrant, and they said so. They didn't have a warrant. They said they were part of a straw purchase task force. And they were there with a checklist to make sure that the multiple guns that he had purchased over the last 6 months were actually still in his possession, that he had not bought them for somebody else. No warrant. Show us your guns. They had the serial numbers. They wanted to know if he had them. If he didn't have them, what was going to happen? I don't know. We don't know that part because he did. And he was concerned, but he recorded the whole thing on a Ring doorbell. And at one point, you can hear them talking to themselves going, he doesn't believe we're police officers. And one of the other guys goes, I don't blame him. They didn't like what they were doing either. They were ordered to go to a man's house, knock on the door, and ask him to show them his guns. They checked him off the list, and they went on their way. Folks, I'm going to tell you, that is not supposed to happen. That's exactly what the Second Amendment is supposed to prevent, what the right of due process is supposed to prevent. That's why we have warrants. They have to be signed off by judges. But he gave consent, and that's the thing. They're clear because they didn't come in and they didn't get anything that he didn't consent to show. But the reality is, what if he had said, I don't have it, my son borrowed it? What if he had said, I don't have it, I turned it into the gunsmith to have it engraved or to have it modified? He happened to have them with him, so he showed them. They checked him off the list, said, thank you for your time. How many other doors have they knocked on? I don't know. But come and take it comes to mind when I hear that. All right, Boomer, I ran a couple minutes long on that one, man. We'll have a short segment when we come back to intro the next topic. But that's number one on the Triple Dipper, y'all. Come and take it. Those were just a handful of stories that indicate that right now what we're seeing, especially out of D.C., is a form of government that decides that it's there to protect itself and to regulate you so that it can be big government. Ooh, come and take it's what I say. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Boomer, you always forget that I have to wait until I hear Sammy Hagar yell in the microphone before I can go live on that one. So it's a thing. It's a thing. Hey, we got a caller held on during the break? Yeah, okay. Hey, line one, Ron from Lacey Springs. Ron, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Just a little bit concerned about your last conversation or topic there on the ATF coming and wanting to see his guns.
Yeah.
How did they get a list?
Well, they had a list because of the federal background checks that are required at the point of sale. So he had purchased.
But it was my understanding that nobody was supposed to be keeping records. I mean, it's a background check, but the ATF is not supposed to be keeping records of that.
Oh, I agree. That's part of the issue is how did they show up with a clipboard? I see your question now. So how did they show up with a clipboard? I don't know. I mean, but obviously they did, and they knew exactly what guns he had, and they matched the serial number of his weapon to what they had on the check sheet. And so yeah.
To me, the ATF is illegally keeping records that they're not supposed to be keeping.
One would think, and these were not. By the way, these were
that's
not.
The law. I mean,
these were not national.
Discussed before that there are not. I mean, there is not supposed to be a permanent record of the gun that you purchased. It's supposed to be a background check to make sure you're legal to buy a gun, and no record is supposed to be kept of it past that.
And these were not National Firearms registered guns. There were no automatic weapons. There were no silencers. These were just straight up purchases that happened at some local gun shop. I don't have the answer for you on that, Ron. But the reality is the whole thing's a bad deal.
Well, I think we should be calling our congressmen and senators and making sure they get rid of that list.
I totally agree. Ron, thanks for the call, man. Appreciate you. You have a great weekend.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Well, listen, coming up next in the next segment here, I'm going to move into a place that's a different place in the Triple Dipper. I'm going into number 2, rogue DAs. So what exactly is prosecutorial discretion? Well, first of all, you're hearing these stories about these DAs around the nation that they're choosing not to enforce the law. It's not a matter of prosecutorial discretion. Prosecutorial discretion is when a prosecutor has the power to actually decide, whether or not to charge a certain crime or which criminal charges to file, or for that matter, whether to use a lesser included offense as the primary, or whether to make a plea deal with someone in order to gain their cooperation as a witness against someone else, or whatever the case may be. Prosecutorial discretion is normal, and sometimes it promotes what they call judicial economy because the docket's so full, we can get you on this one. We don't have the ability to literally prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you're guilty of the higher charge, so we'll go with the lesser. It keeps things moving. Maybe, like I said, it secures their cooperation for a future as a witness on a future issue. But then there's a downside of prosecutorial discretion where sometimes their biases get involved. Well, that's prosecutorial discretion that becomes an abuse of discretion. But what happens when a prosecutor just announces that there's certain crimes they won't prosecute no matter what? Like, it's not discretion anymore. It's just ain't going to do it. Well, that's a violation of the public trust. We're going to talk about that with Matt Clark from the Alabama Center for Law and Liberty here in just a minute. He'll be on the phone with us. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama. Solid conservative, just plain right. That's right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time, you guys. Hey, listen, I'm going to get on the phones right now with a friend of mine, Matt Clark from the Alabama Center for Law and Liberty. Matt's got a great track record of working on issues of import that are constitutional, that are what I would call upper level in the realm of law. He's spent time working at the Alabama Supreme Court, a law degree from Liberty University. Also worked in well, now I just forgot the name of the organization that was headed by former Chief Justice Roy Moore. But now, though, the main thing is he's the president of the Alabama Center for Law and Liberty, and he's really been doing an amazing job. And we're going to talk to him about this issue of prosecutors deciding what they will and will not prosecute. Matt Clark, how you doing, man?
Hey, Phil, I am doing great. How are you, my friend?
I am good. I'm good. Hey, man, thanks for spending time with us. This segment kind of came to me really early this morning, so I appreciate you being willing, on short notice to jump on the show. I know you're tracking it, but Governor Ron DeSantis yesterday afternoon or yesterday morning, I believe, suspended a state attorney, which I believe is Florida's version of a district attorney here, but it suspended a state attorney for announcing that he would not enforce certain laws related to transgender therapies on minors, which is part of state law there. But you've dealt with the same issue related to a DA here in Alabama saying just literally he's not going to prosecute cases related to abortion law in Alabama. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's right, Phil. Here in Alabama, we've got we've got one prosecutor in Jefferson County who came out and announced that he's not going to enforce Alabama's pro-life law that we passed in 2019 that essentially bans abortion. And the Democratic candidate for Mobile District Attorney is kind of on the fence about it, too. I think she's kind of watching and seeing how it's going to go down if she gets elected. So this is becoming a problem. We're seeing this nationwide. George Soros, I think, as you mentioned, is backing a lot of liberal prosecutors that are refusing to enforce laws generally. And it's even gotten so bad that, San Francisco has just removed their DA and actually elected one that's going to enforce the law. So I got to tip my hat to Governor DeSantis. I think he absolutely did the right thing in stepping in, exercising his discretion that Florida law gives him to suspend this rogue prosecutor, because he's got to deal not only with that prosecutor, but all the other ones that are watching to figure out whether they can get away with it. Now, here in Alabama, we are structured a little bit differently. I was doing some research on this. My wife helped as well. She's an attorney, and so she was providing me some really good input. It turns out that in Florida, the way that their constitution is set up, the Constitution does give, I think, the Florida governor more discretion than the Alabama governor does. And there's even precedent where the Florida governor has done this in the past. So it's not like Ron DeSantis wakes up and decides that he's going to try to experiment with the law. This is actually pretty settled in Florida, and it's been settled for a long time that he can do this. Here in Alabama, one thing about our Constitution is that our executive branch is actually weaker on average than the executive branches of most states. Power is divided between more executive branch officials. So as I was looking at this, I think the short answer for could Kay Ivey suspend like the Jefferson County DA or Mobile DA, I don't think so. But what they can do is Governor Ivey and Steve Marshall, especially Steve Marshall, have been given some power to impeach DAs that decide that they are not going to enforce the law. So if things go down in Alabama where we see willful dereliction of duty, and that's the language that the law uses as grounds for impeachment, if we see DAs that are engaging in willful dereliction of duty, they can be impeached and they can be removed from office.
Okay, when you say impeachment proceedings, then is that something that sort of like impeaching the governor, that the state senate becomes the trial venue, so to speak, or is this something that has to happen through a different means?
Yeah, it happens at the local level. There are some constitutional officers like the governor, the attorney general, or secretary of state, people like that. If they ever got impeached, then the legislature would be the tribunal that decides whether they get removed or not. But when it comes to local DAs, it actually has to happen at the local level. They get a trial in the circuit court in their jurisdiction. They actually get a trial by jury. So it's actually a jury that decides whether they stay or go. It looks like our law is pretty concerned about fairness to the defendants, and I respect that.
I get that.
On the other hand, when we're talking about the attorney that is responsible for enforcing all the criminal laws in that jurisdiction, it does make me wonder if somebody like the state Supreme Court ought to be the one that decides that rather than just a jury. But for now, that's the law that we're stuck with.
So okay, then let me ask you this, and I don't want to go too deep in the weeds. If you know, who initiates the impeachment charges? Is that something initiated by the governor, initiated by the attorney general, or is it something that the voters of the like a city council has to do? What's the deal?
It's usually initiated by the attorney general's office.
Okay,
and that's good because no disrespect to Governor Ivey, but between Kay Ivey and Steve Marshall, I think Steve Marshall would be more aggressive in going after rogue DAs than Kay Ivey would. So
I think that's true.
Under these circumstances, I'm glad that he's generally the one with the power to kick off impeachment proceedings. Now, if for whatever reason Marshall decides that he's not going to go after them, the governor can order him to initiate impeachment proceedings. And interestingly enough, the Alabama Supreme Court can do it too. It's a very interesting setup. So either the governor or the Alabama Supreme Court can order him, saying, okay, we have sufficient grounds to indict this guy, and you need to go ahead and initiate these proceedings. So that's how Alabama law sets it up.
Yeah, and that makes more sense. So to back up the listeners here, what we're talking about is, and I've forgotten his name, but is it Charles Hart? Is that his name from Jefferson County, I believe? Danny Carr.
No,
I'm sorry, Danny Carr.
Carr. That's right.
Yeah, Jefferson County District Attorney Danny Carr. He actually signed a pledge not to enforce Alabama's abortion law, and it was a pledge, by the way, that was being put out there by a George Soros backed organization. I think there were like 80 district attorneys around the nation that all sort of banded together and said, in essence, we intend to never bring anything to trial related to abortion, restrictions being bypassed, regardless of state law, and by the way, regardless of their oath to their office. So this is not prosecutorial discretion. This is literally just a choice to abuse the privilege of being a district attorney and just not enforce certain laws.
Yeah, I agree with you, Phil. And I got to give my wife credit here. I was talking with her about this, and she said, what this really is? This is not a case of prosecutors deciding that they're going to turn down, a case or two here or there. But it's really a case of prosecutors deciding what the law or what the policy is going to be in their jurisdiction. That matter is reserved for the legislature alone. Now, traditionally, prosecutors have enjoyed some level of discretion, and I think they ought to have it. But there's a difference between, maybe looking at one case, let's say where, take an old client of mine, for instance, who got a life sentence for stealing a nail gun from Lowe's, even though he didn't hurt anybody.
Wow.
Plausibly, the prosecutors could have charged him with low-level shoplifting. They could have charged him with a low degree of robbery or a high degree of robbery. In cases like that, I think prosecutors ought to be able to look and see, which offense fits, the facts best,
Sure.
and just go after that one.
Yeah.
Because sending a man to prison for life for stealing a nail gun is ridiculous. That's not justice. That's overkill. All right. But that's different than what we have going on here, where the prosecutors are not just looking at how the law could come down in a certain case, but they're just deciding, I don't like the law, therefore I'm not going to enforce it. But the problem, as you pointed out, is that they took an oath to uphold the law and see that the law is faithfully executed. So DeSantis made a good point when he decided he was going to suspend this rogue prosecutor in Florida, saying the veto power over bad legislation rests with the governor, not local DAs, and he was absolutely right about that.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
If local DAs are just deciding that they're not going to enforce certain laws, then they're usurping both the role of the legislature and the veto power of the governor, and they cannot do that.
Well, and this is a little bit of a divergence from the topic. I'm sticking with rogue DAs for the most part, but one of the things that gets me too is the undermining of the prosecutorial authority or the arrest authority by people like Mayor Randall Woodfin in Birmingham, who just arbitrarily decided that he's not going to.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, I said, can you hear me now? We can stop dialing now,
yeah.
Boomer. I think we just need to leave it like it is, man. We're trying to dial some things in right now to sort of tweak the sound. But no, I said one of the things that really gets me too is, and not to diverge too far from the topic, is occasionally the executive will pardon blanket pardon like Mayor Randall Woodfin, who said that if you get arrested and convicted in municipal court in Birmingham for a low-level drug offense, he's going to pardon it. All the way back to 1992, blanket pardons, over 15,000 pardons issued, which basically sends a message to the prosecutors, why bother? To me, it's another example of the abuse of power by liberals who are choosing to just see certain laws as being not worth their time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, ever since America has been a nation, the executive branch has enjoyed a little bit of discretion, whether it's prosecutors deciding I'm not going to go after one case in particular or the governor deciding that they're going to pardon somebody. But it's a completely different animal when the executive branch, whether it's the governor or mayor or DA, just decides, no, I'm going to let these criminals go. There is a verse, I think, in Ecclesiastes that says, because the offense was not dealt with quickly, therefore the hearts of the sons of men are more inclined to do evil.
Wow.
Basically, yeah, it means if you're sending a message and we're not going to punish it, it's going to fire up the criminals and they're going to be worse.
Yeah.
So they have to enforce the laws. Otherwise, we're going to have anarchy.
Look at San Francisco. Well, and we don't ever want to be San Francisco, but
No, absolutely not.
But what we also don't want is, and I take offense at this guy, Danny Carr, and I don't has he issued any more public statements since you called him out on this? Has anything been said by him or his office about his open stance on not enforcing abortion laws?
No, not that I've seen. Unfortunately, the Alabama Attorney General came out and said, if there are cases of breaking abortion law in Jefferson County, we're going to step in and we're going to handle it. So I don't think there's anything left that Danny Carr can say. But as far as I know, he hasn't said anything since then.
He hasn't been reprimanded by the Attorney General's office or anybody else that you're aware of?
Well, I think, he got, I think he did get reprimanded by the Attorney General's office. But the way the law is set up is that I don't think the AG's office can punish him or sanction him or anything like that. They can just step in and say, we're going to handle this if you don't. And that's what the AG has said he's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's no charges to bring until he's actually not acted on one. But for right now, his open stance can certainly get a rebuke, and I hope he did get a rebuke. All right,
yeah, he did.
Matt Clark, appreciate you. As always, you provide great context to what we're dealing with, and thanks for the work you're doing at the Alabama Center for Law and Liberty. If you want to tell folks how to find you, where do they find you?
Well, thanks, Phil. You guys can find us at alabamalawandliberty.org, and we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under Law and Liberty AL, so you can find us there.
All right, man. You have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. All right, Boomer, take us to a break, brother. We'll go ahead and do that right now. All right, folks, listen, we're going to keep on with this topic, rogue DAs. I mean, I've got an article right here that seems to indicate that what just happened in San Francisco with Chesa Bowden, the DA who was recalled by the people. First of all, I did not know how liberal he actually was until I read this article. But the indications are that this might show that there is a nationwide sense of we've had it with these rogue DAs. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, spanning north of Huntsville, down south of Birmingham, Tuscaloosa to Gadsden, all points in between. Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. So, hey, we are in the segment right now that I've been calling Rogue DAs. And Rogue DAs, by the way, is not my phrase. That's out there in the news. You can Google Rogue DAs and find story after story after story right now. People are sick of it. I mean, just fed up. What's interesting, though, is it's not just the conservatives who are fed up. People are fed up. I mean, out in out in California, San Francisco District Attorney Chesa Bowden, who is the most uber liberal guy that you could possibly imagine, just got recalled. Do you think that it was like some kind of outpouring of conservatism that rose up at the polls? No, it was liberals who were also sick of finding crime-infested streets when they walked out their front doors. It was businesses who no longer could leave their doors unlocked so that, people could come and go as they please, or customers and all. They had to leave them locked because of the constant crime and theft and finding homeless people sleeping on their front steps and defecating on their sidewalks. Of kids having to walk past, drug parks where they're openly shooting up on the streets on their way to school. I mean, at some point you look at it and go, I don't care what your political beliefs are. No one wants to live in that. No one wants to live in that. And so Chesa Bowden, he got it handed to him at the polls in an overwhelming recall election. And right now I'm hoping this movement is going to continue on. Story I've got here from Heritage. And by the way, this Heritage story says things that I had no idea. I just thought that Chesa Bowden was a liberal. I don't know what I was thinking, but I just thought that he was just like some kind of lib who got funded like by Soros and go, I'll take your money. Sure. What do you want me to do when I get there? Okay. I thought it was silly me. No, this guy was like basically indoctrinated from youth. I was shocked when I read this article. If this is true, and I have no reason to believe it's not. Story here off of heritage.org, which is the Heritage Foundation. Heritage.org wrote this piece on June 9th of this year. So it's just a little over, 2 months old. Chesa Bowden, the rogue prosecutor of San Francisco, was recalled from office Tuesday by voters who are disgusted by his feckless leadership and pro-criminal anti-victim policies. The recall was organized and funded primarily by liberal Democrats who were fed up with Bowden and his hands-off approach to enforcing the law. His recall is significant, it says, not just for the voters in the city by the Bay, but nationally, as it is the clearest signal yet that the rogue prosecutor movement, as we've been saying, is a colossal failure. Here's who he was, though. First of all, what did they think was going to happen? It says voters in San Francisco quite honestly should have known better when they voted for Bowden the first time. His parents, Kathy Bowden and David Gilbert, were members of the Weather Underground, and I've heard of them. Oh, yes, haven't we all? A radical militant Marxist organization. His parents drove the getaway car from an armed robbery of a Brinks truck in New York in which the Brinks guard and 2 police officers were fatally shot. Wow. So when his parents were convicted and sent to jail, he was raised by 2 other radicals, none other than Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn, co-founders of the Weather Underground, who, by the way, were contemporaries of President Obama. And then, by the way, before he went to Yale Law School, he also lived in Venezuela and served as a translator to dictator Hugo Chavez. Really? Then he clerked for 2 federal judges and began his career in the San Francisco Public Defender's Office, where he argued that California's bail system was unconstitutional. That's the guy they elected to be the district attorney, and they didn't see this coming? Well, nonetheless, even liberals got fed up. Even liberals got so irritated with this. It goes on to say the entire so-called progressive prosecutor movement is built on 2 premises. Number 1, it's built on the premise that the entire criminal justice system is somehow systemically racist. And number 2, that to fix the system, you have to reverse engineer it and dismantle the criminal justice infrastructure. Well, I'm going to tell you, I got more on this, and we're going to get to it after the break. But let me just say this. It is absolutely apparent that it doesn't matter your political beliefs. No one wants crime-infested streets. No one wants their families to be unsafe. No one wants their kids to walk past, addicts shooting up on the streets. No one wants to have to walk outside the door and smell the open sewers of the city sidewalks that have become the place where the homeless and the mentally ill just hang out and defecate. I'm just telling you, no one wants that. All right, listen, those of you in the Birmingham market that have our show on Crawford Media Group's WXJC 101.1 FM and WYDE F 850 AM, you're about to switch over and hear my friend Greg Davis with Priority Talk. Those of you in the Huntsville market at 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN, you guys hang around. We got another hour. We're going to keep going. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Y'all stay tuned. We're coming back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, Alabama's syndicated news talk leader. That's right here in the Rightside studio. Local, state, national stuff. We got all the issues covering down on it. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. So going on with this segment now, kind of wrapping this up. Rogue DAs. All right, rogue DAs. DAs who literally say, you know what? I see that crime over there. It's a crime on the books. Don't ever bring that crime before me. I don't intend to ever prosecute that. We're not talking about prosecutorial discretion. Prosecutorial discretion is a reasonable thing that is generally allowed, and there can be abuses of that. There can be an abuse of discretion. There can be an opportunity there for someone to selectively go after somebody heavier than they should have, and that's because they have a personal bias as a prosecutor. They can just as easily also go too light on someone because they have a bent towards a certain personal bias. It's hard to separate personal bias from the job. I get that, but it doesn't mean that it's right. I'm just saying that there are times when how you feel about something weighs in. But a good prosecutor is sworn to uphold and defend, and it does not mean they are allowed to become the arbiter of truth. They are pursuing the prosecution of crimes. If they have the evidence, if they have the ability to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that there is a crime that has been committed, it is their job to pursue it. Now, prosecutorial discretion does allow for times when you can plead down. You can plead down, in order to, gain cooperation with a criminal defendant who can then, in return agree to testify against someone else for a more, heinous crime or more difficult crime to prosecute, and they need his witness testimony. The same can be true, though, just for judicial economy. Maybe you can prove the drug offense, but you're not sure you can get to the, what's another one, just the conspiracy claim. So all said and done, prosecutorial discretion is a thing. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about here are rogue DAs that just say, literally, that thing out there, don't ever bring that to me. And they announce to the world in advance that that's just not going to happen in my office. And they set policies that literally undermine the ability to enforce the law. Because when you set that policy in advance, what does that tell law enforcement? Law enforcement looks at it and goes, well, why should I put myself at risk? Why should I have to take the chance of sticking my hand in that druggie's pocket and getting poked with a needle if I know that when I bring it to the DA, he's not going to prosecute a drug crime anyway? Why should I look at it and go, over there on the street corner, I just saw a drug deal go down. I'm a police officer. I should do something. Well, but at the same time, the mayor is going to wind up just dismissing it or pardoning it, even if we get the conviction. It undermines, and by the way, it totally becomes a disenchanting, a demoralizing of the men and women in blue who are out there risking their lives every single day to literally find out that the things that they're supposed to pursue won't ever get pursued by the prosecution. Law and order, the two parts go hand in hand. You have those with the arrest authorities and those with the prosecutorial requirements or duties. I'm just saying. Rogue DAs. This guy, Chase Bowden, by the way, man, what a liberal. But they all, it's amazing how much of this has been because of George Soros. What a sick individual. I mean, it's like everything he's doing is designed to dismantle the United States, intentionally dismantle the United States. Well, okay, label everything racist and demand that we dismantle and re-engineer the criminal justice system. Sound familiar? Well, story I had from Heritage that I was over in a minute ago, what these rogue prosecutors didn't count on, says the folks at Heritage, was that liberal inner city residents and voters would rise up and demand a change, that the liberals also want law and order. It says they gambled on the idea that liberal voters would tolerate crime or robbery or thefts or open-air drug markets or rising gang violence and more homicides as long as they could be told that they were reimagining prosecution and dealing with mass incarceration. They also assume that inner city residents are stupid, it says, which you have to look at it and go, well, you voted Bowden in the first time, but I get it. They assumed that they could maintain the charade. But they assumed that voters wouldn't remember that things had been better until they took office. Like, we're talking about people like Bowden, who I just talked about earlier in San Francisco, George Gascon, Los Angeles, Larry Krasner, Philadelphia, Kim Fox in Chicago, Kimberly Gardner in St. Louis, the guy's name who I can't remember in New York City. All the crime rates have gone up since they took office because they refused to prosecute certain crimes. And they just blather on about things like mass incarceration and systemic racism. Meanwhile, crime in the streets. Well, Ron DeSantis got busy. Ron DeSantis got active. Ron DeSantis just continues to show leader. I'll be honest with you. Ron DeSantis is just kicking it, in my opinion. But when he came out and said, basically, I guarantee you what happened was he got ticked when he saw a prosecutor who announced that he was not going to enforce the laws on transgender therapies for minors, just announced that he wasn't going to do it. He probably turned to his staff and he said, I need to know if I have the authority to do something about it. And I guarantee you his chief legal counsel came back and said, Mr. Governor, you do, and here's how. And so he did. He suspended him. Statement from the governor. We are not going to allow this pathogen that's been around the country of ignoring the law. We're not going to let that get a foothold here in Florida. We're going to make sure our laws are enforced and that no individual prosecutor puts himself above the law. And I can tell you, the states and the localities that have allowed this to happen, they are ruining the day, said DeSantis. And he's right. He is absolutely right. He went on to say the guy Warren that he suspended, a guy named Andrew Warren, state attorney Andrew Warren. He said Warren has effectively nullified Florida's criminal laws in the 13th Judicial Circuit and thereby eroding the law, the rule of law, encouraging lawlessness, and usurping the exclusive role of the Florida legislature to define criminal conduct. Exactly right. If you want to be a legislator and change the laws, go be a legislator and change the laws. But do not think for a second, Mr. Prosecutor, that you can have the luxury of being a legislator in a prosecutor's office. You don't have that right. You don't make the laws, you enforce the laws. And the executive branch, that's the way it works. The legislative branch, that's the way it works. The judicial branch, they have their own. They are literally there to be the arbiter of the law and the facts. Rogue DAs. Don't let it happen. And we've got one. We've got one right now here in Alabama. Danny Carr, Jefferson County District Attorney Danny Carr, who has signed on to a letter by a Soros-backed organization, freebeacon.com, dated June 29th. Dozens of progressive prosecutors, many of them funded by left-wing billionaire George Soros, have signed on to an open letter signaling their intention to defy state laws that would impose limits on abortion. Since Friday, it says, this is June 29th, 87 prosecutors have signed a letter published by the Fair and Just Prosecution, a Soros-funded progressive legal nonprofit, stating that they will decline to use our offices to criminalize reproductive health decisions. It's not reproductive, by the way. It's non-reproductive. You're killing babies. How can that be reproducing? It's not reproductive health. It's non-reproductive health. Anyway, I digress. And commit to exercise our well-settled discretion and refrain from prosecuting those who seek, provide, or support abortions. 28 of the document's 87 signatories, roughly a third, have ties to Soros, according to the Washington Beacon. So, yeah, George Soros, literally determined to undermine the rule of law, literally determined to put his money behind people like Chesa Bowden, who will go into office and make things worse, like Kim Fox, like Gascon, and it goes on and on. Don't let it happen here, Alabama. If you see a prosecutor announcing that they don't like those laws, so they choose not to enforce them, or for that matter, Mayor Randall Woodfin, who, in my opinion, is unfit to serve now because he's decided that he's going to pardon every single offense despite what the laws say. Mr. Mayor, you are welcome to go and be a legislator and try to fight to have the laws changed. But it is, and I understand individual pardoning authority. He can argue all day long that pardoning authority is part of his office, that part of the privilege of his office. He's abusing that privilege. 15,000 blanket pardons in one whack, dating back to 1992. How long has he been in office? Since what, 2014? 2015, 16? That's an abuse of power, and it signals that it doesn't matter what happens in terms of conviction. He's not going to let it stand. All right, folks, listen. We're going to move off this topic. Boomer, go ahead and take us to a break, brother. We'll go to this break right now. I'm going to switch gears. Rogue DAs, not here. Not on my watch. You should be saying the same thing. Keep your heads on a swivel. Keep your powder dry. Don't let it happen. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. You stay tuned. We'll be right back. right, we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right here on a Friday afternoon. Man, it's Friday. It is like almost go home time, 4:22 p.m. We're going to switch gears. I'm getting off the rogue DAs and moving on to the next one. So I'm calling this next thing, I know some people are going to say, that's just insensitive. You like it, Boomer? Grab the mic, man. You like this title?
I like this title.
Okay.
A lot, actually.
All right. So the next one I'm just calling next one, number 3 of the Triple Dipper, a barrel full of monkeypox. That's what I'm calling it. What song had the phrase "barrel full of monkeys" in it? That was no. It was a classic rock song. Oh, I know what it was. "Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting" by Elton John. My old man's a drunkard in a barrel full of monkeys, and my old lady, she don't care. My sister looks cute in her breeches and boots with a handful of breeze in her hair. That's okay. So why did that come from in my memory?
I'm really impressed. I'm like, wow.
I'd like to say I'm impressed, but I'm still kind of shocked that, first of all, I'm shocked that Elton John, of all people, had a song about Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting because it made him sound like a tough guy, I guess. But anyway, barrel full of monkeypox. That's what we're dealing with. Are you scared? Do you find yourself not wanting to go out to dinner? Should we have to start social distancing? Are we in 14 days to flatten the monkeypox curve? What is happening right now? Boomer, do you find yourself not wanting to visit the grocery store or go to church on Sunday? What's happening?
I'm so scared. I mean, really? I mean, I think you said this earlier. What, 300 million people in the United States and 6,000 cases?
Yeah.
Something like that, right?
Did you steal my notes?
I did. I was listening. I was actually writing them down.
So, yeah, 329 million, 329.5 million. I just looked it up. I can't brag. I had to look at my computer. 329.5 million is the current estimated population of the United States, 6,600. And I tried to use my calculator. My calculator on my phone had trouble with that many zeros. But the reality is, what I think that is less than 0.2% of the population has seen monkeypox.
Yeah.
Do you know anybody with monkeypox?
I do not. I know someone with a monkey phobia, but that has nothing to do with monkeypox.
We did get accused yesterday. You just totally wiped out that whole segment right there. So we did get accused yesterday, though. We had the open house here at the Rightside Studios, and one of our friends, Bobby, was here, and we have a window looking into the studio, and he called this the monkey cage. Said he's going to stand out there and throw peanuts at the window, but no, a barrel full of monkeypox. I mean, to hear the Biden administration right now, it's epic. It's running rampant through our society. It's not, and I'm not a doctor. And I did not stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. But I'm going to be honest with you. We're not there. Now, if we get there, I'll be the first to go, holy cow, because I don't want monkeypox either. But let me just go ahead and tell you one of the things they're not talking about much in the mainstream media. I've got multiple stories stacked up here. A barrel full of monkeypox, but what they're also not telling you, because it's uncomfortable for them to say it, is that something like 91% of the monkeypox cases are happening among gay men who have had relations with other men. And I'm just, that's a fact. That's not me creating something. That's not me going, oh, Phil, what a biased thing for you to say. I wasn't biased. That's a fact. Deal with the facts. Just deal with the facts. They are what they are. And so less than 0.2%, maybe less, of the U.S. population has experienced monkeypox, and yesterday, it was last night actually, I think it was, the Biden administration declared a public health emergency. Pray tell, why would that be? Well, I mean, the innocent answer is, well, it opens up the door. The emergency declaration frees up things like federal monies and gives us the ability to generate more vaccines under government order and get them distributed quickly and make them a priority because we've got to have monkeypox vaccines now. All right. But what you have to wonder after the last 2.5, 3 years, is it just another opportunity for them to, issue draconian executive orders and try to restrict certain levels of society, and for that matter, pick the winners and losers again, like declaring what businesses are essential and non-essential? Folks, we are not there. We are not. This is, I don't know what you have to, what legal agenda you have to, not legal agenda, what legal regulatory framework you have to be in to actually use the phrase public health emergency. But when you have this few of the citizenry actually being diagnosed with monkeypox, but you want to tell the world that we got a barrel full of monkeypox here. I mean, it's monkeypox to my left and monkeypox to my right. Everywhere I see, I can't swing a dead cat without hitting a case of monkeypox. Do you know? All right, I'd be curious. If y'all want to call in, by the way, this last half hour, I may have to be toned down by a few phone calls. Then again, I might get fired up by a few phone calls. 833-68-RIGHT. We're going to head to a break, but I just want to know, does anybody out there know anybody with monkeypox? Do you? How'd they get it? Are they gay? I mean, I don't know. Is because what we're hearing right now is that that's a thing, is that the gay population is the vast majority of the cases. And that's not me. That's not me. You're homophobic. No, I'm not. I'm stating a fact. It's the numbers. Oh boy, Boomer, you need to get me to the weekend, brother.
We're almost there. We're getting there.
Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Barrel full of monkeypox. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Boomer and I are having more fun than people should be allowed to have. Hey, by the way, before I go any further, I got to tell you, some of you folks are out there right now thinking, all right, Saturday morning. And you know what? I don't want to eat the bowl of cereal or the quick biscuit like I often get on the way to work in the morning. I don't want to drink the smoothie and keep moving. So maybe Saturday morning is your big breakfast opportunity, right? Let me suggest to you Just Love Coffee Cafe. Just Love Coffee Cafe with 2 locations in our listening area, one on Hughes Road in Madison out towards City Hall, the other on South Memorial Parkway near Whole Foods. Listen, do they have great coffee? Yeah, but can you imagine this? It's Saturday morning. You get up, you put on a hat, you throw on the tennis shoes, your favorite T-shirt, and you go down to one of the Just Love Coffee Cafe locations. You get you a cappuccino and a womlet. That's a giant omelet stuffed with everything in the world cooked in a waffle iron. Or maybe you get actual waffles because they have all kinds of different waffles. I mean, I'm just saying, folks, they got a menu for breakfast that'll knock your socks off. And it's not your usual drive through the fast food line, get you a biscuit kind of go food. It's like, wow, I can't get this anywhere else food. On top of that, let me just say this. Just Love Coffee Cafe, Travis, who runs both locations here in our area, he wanted me to make sure y'all knew, too, that they are an organization. I've said this before. They are an organization that gives back to the community on a regular basis. And so tomorrow at the Huntsville location on Parkway in Huntsville, they're doing a diaper drive. Not only can you go there, enjoy getting a better meal and a cup of coffee than you might have made at home, by the way, with no dishes to clean afterwards. But they've got a diaper drive going right now to support the Huntsville Pregnancy Center, Resource Center, the Women's Center of Athens, and Save a Life of Decatur. They're collecting these diapers to basically give to them to help young mothers. And so let me encourage you, if you're thinking about a Saturday morning breakfast and you want to just have a great time, you're also supporting the opportunity to support these pro-life organizations that help young mothers. So yeah, a diaper drive tomorrow morning, Just Love Coffee Cafe's Huntsville location on South Memorial Parkway. Have some breakfast and do a good thing. All right, there's that. Let me just go back to this. Barrel full of monkeypox. It's where we are, Boomer. Just, hey, this is serious business. Calm yourself down over there.
I just can't take it serious. I mean, I feel for the people that are sick, but... yeah.
You're heartless. How did I allow you in the studio? You're heartless. No, I get it. That's why I gave it the euphemistic name. There's a good Scrabble word. The euphemistic name, a barrel full of monkeypox. Charlene just texted me, by the way, and said, y'all are out of control. I got to come down to the studio. Here's the thing. All right. Yesterday, the Biden administration declared a public health emergency. Yeah, story on Fox News, dated August 4th. Department of Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra on Thursday said he was declaring a public health emergency over the monkeypox outbreak. In light of evolving circumstances on the ground, he said, I am declaring a public health emergency on #monkeypox. I guess that's his public statement, actually said #monkeypox. We are prepared to take our response to the next level in addressing this virus, and we urge every American to take monkeypox seriously. I guess we blew that part. Oh, this is awful. Later Thursday, this is yesterday afternoon, later Thursday, President Biden tweeted he remained, quote, committed to our monkeypox response, ramping up vaccine distribution, expanding testing, and educating at-risk communities. Oh, so there's at-risk communities. Well, the at-risk community, what they're not reporting here, happens to be that the vast majority of the 6,600 monkeypox cases diagnosed in the United States have been among gay men who have recently had sex with other men. And so I don't know how to explain that. I'm just saying that is the figure that we're seeing right now in the reports, that the preponderance of the cases, the vast majority of them actually, are in the 90 percentile, are coming in the gay male community. And oh, by the way, 6,600. 6,600. There are 329 million people in America. 6,600 cases. Public health emergencies. Yeah. Well, anyway, I want to make sure you know, too, that aside from the president declaring a public health emergency, that California, Illinois, and New York have also made their own declarations of emergency over monkeypox. Big doings. As have New York City, San Francisco, and San Diego County. There you go. By the way, it spreads. It's not airborne. It spreads through close skin-to-skin contact. Period. It's possible that you can have some measure of contact, like if you handle a glass or you change the sheets, and that's where someone has been that has it, but less likely. Usually skin-to-skin contact. Now, it's important for you to know, too. Boomer, take note. Take heart. Take heart, Boomer. They are on it. Earlier this week, the Biden administration named top officials from the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to serve as the White House coordinators to combat the monkeypox outbreak. We have a monkeypox task force. By God. And I think they need they do need it. They need a patch for their uniforms. We need task force monkeypox patch. We were talking about this during the break. I am picturing the Gas Monkey Garage logo. We're gonna have to post that. But yeah, we got a monkeypox task force. What's your position? You work for the U.S. government. What do you do? Well, I don't want to brag or anything, but I'm a team leader in task force monkeypox. Wow. Probably stockpiling ammunition too, just so you know. All right, monkeypox is spreading in Texas. Texas Tribune is reporting. Here's what you need to know about monkeypox spreading in Texas. Storyline dated July 22nd. Well, here's what you need to know. You ready for this? It says that they expect cases to continue to rise. It goes on to say, though, in the very next sentence, the disease is not deadly. It doesn't usually lead to hospitalization, although symptoms can be more severe in patients who are immunocompromised. Are you hearing this? If you are not immunocompromised and you don't come in skin-to-skin contact with someone who has it, even if you did, it's not considered deadly, and it doesn't usually lead to hospitalization. It says the virus has been endemic. That means it's been around. They just live with it. Endemic in parts of Africa for decades, but it rarely makes it outside that continent. The first time it did was in 2003 in Texas, actually. There were like 70 people who caught it. They've been infected They've been infected by pet prairie dogs. This gets weirder and weirder. Do you know anybody with a prairie dog phobia while we're at it? They have been, 70 people caught it because they were infected by pet prairie dogs. I'm having trouble. All right, let me get under control, Williams. This is serious business. We had a monkeypox task force out there. They're trying to do their work. While most cases, I did not mean for this to be a total mocking segment, but it has happened. It's all because of you talking about a monkey phobia, and now I can't control myself anymore.
I'm sorry. I was just bringing the true.
Yeah, you were just trying to. Yeah, well, 50 lashes with a wet noodle for you. All right, here we go. It says, while most cases, particularly in the current outbreak, are not severe. I highlighted that. I circled that. They're not severe. Most cases are not severe. Monkeypox is yet nonetheless nothing to ignore. Well, I mean, if you get it, you're going to hate it. I'm pretty sure. I have no doubt that it's painful. If you had chickenpox as a kid, you know it's not fun. It itches. There are blisters. They can cause pain. I anticipate that from what I'm seeing described that it's like some folks who have shingles. But listen, it goes on to say, yes, it creates blisters and lesions of the skin. There's a fever, often with swollen lymph nodes in the early stages. It can last a few days. It can last a few days to a month. And it can put someone in isolation, which can cause disruption in working and childcare. Yeah, well, okay. So we have a public health emergency for 0.0002% of the population having caught something which is not known to be deadly, nor does it generally lead to hospitalization, which typically resolves itself in sometimes a matter of days. public health emergency. It goes on to say in this very informative article from the Texas Tribune, it is not, however, an airborne disease and is difficult to pass to others through casual contact. Okay. For now, most medical response to the virus is just managing the pain and treating the symptoms. A vaccine from monkeypox can also prevent or lessen the symptoms up to 14 days after exposure. Does anyone out there, do any right side ruffians have any fear of monkeypox? Do any of you right side ruffians know anybody had monkeypox? Does anyone even know why they named it monkeypox? Why is it named monkeypox? I hadn't even thought about that. We got a barrel full of monkeypox. I don't even know why it's called monkeypox. We got the chicken pox. Did they come from chickens? I guarantee you it wasn't from close contact with chickens. Is it time for a break? Okay, it is time for, you better take me to a break for the FCC calls. All right, Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid, conservative, and apparently mocking the barrel full of monkeypox that is seen by the Biden administration. You hang on, we'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, covering all of North Alabama. Solid conservative, just plain right. We had all I know is I saw Boomer having a complete breakdown at his desk. We had a caller during the break who called in and wanted to talk something about guinea pigs and gay men. And we had to go ahead we just said, no. Boomer's taking his headphones off now. He's done for the day already. But yeah, listen, you gotta barrel full of monkeypox. It's a crisis. Get yourself under control, Williams. It's serious business. All right. Deep breath. All right. AP News reports California governor declares monkeypox state of emergency. I bet Newsom's got himself a task force of monkeypox, too. What do you think? California's governor on Monday declared a state of emergency to speed efforts to combat the monkeypox outbreak, becoming the second state in 3 days to take the step. Governor Gavin Newsom said the declaration will help California coordinate a government-wide response, seeking more vaccines and lead outreach and education efforts on where people can get treatment and vaccination. After pressing for Newsom to make such a declaration, Democrat State Senator Scott Wiener No, that was wrong. Do not laugh. I'm not going to laugh anymore. At all. Not a bit. Nearly 800 cases of monkeypox have been reported in California, according to state public health officials. The monkeypox virus. Oh, God. They have a spokesman named Scott Wiener for this thing. This is not good. The monkeypox virus spreads through prolonged and close skin-to-skin contact, which can include hugging, cuddling, and kissing. This is a statement? They put this in there? As well as through the sharing of bedding, towels, and clothing. Don't share your bath towels. That's never a good idea. People getting sick so far have been mainly men who have sex with men, though health officials note that the virus can infect anyone. Public health officials are clear. Stigma is unacceptable, counterproductive in the public. In other words, what they're saying is, we know the vast preponderance of these are gay men, and yet we're not going to say that because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So what we're going to do is declare a statewide state of emergency and create a monkeypox task force. All right, monkeypox declared a public health emergency in Illinois. Reported by NBC Chicago August 2nd this week. Was that Monday? What day is that? Monday? Tuesday? Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker on Monday declared monkeypox a public health emergency, classifying the state as a disaster area. A disaster area. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Illinois is a state with the third highest number of reported monkeypox infections at 520. 520 statewide. You know how many people are in Illinois? Just in Chicago itself? Okay, at the time this was written, there were only 5,100 infections. One story I have says 6,600. Now, with the declaration in effect, officials can more easily secure monkeypox virus vaccines, shipments, and ramp up distribution to ensure the most impacted communities receive treatment as soon as possible. That's a wonderful thing. Isn't that great? Barrel full of monkeypox going on up there in Illinois. Got them a monkeypox task force. Proclaiming a state of disaster will allow the Illinois Department of Public Health to expand vaccine and testing capacities. How long, though? Here's the thing. How long until we see this become the opportunity for restrictions on society? What do you think? You know what? I did not expect this to become a thing that was going to have me, literally rolling in my seat. You'll be happy to know, by the way, I have an article regarding State Senator Scott Wiener, who did say, and the quote is, "I know people who normally go to sex parties now who will not." That's okay. And he's so proud to be able to say that to the public. We got a caller on line one? Hey, we do. Listen. Oh, it's Allie. Hey, Allie, how you doing today?
Hello, hello?
Hello, Allie. Am I out of line? Tell me if I am. Do we have Allie? I don't think we have her.
There you are.
There we are. Allie, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Okay, Colonel, you know that I have got to provide you with a lock and load, hold my beer moment. Are you ready?
Okay, what you got?
Well, this will hopefully calm you down to the point that Charlene doesn't have to come down there and rough up the rough side refuge. But here's one thing that, in all of this hilarity, and thank God this thing is not criminal, but I want to know how the kids who have gotten it have gotten it. And that's what's got me peppered up, sir.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Wow. Way to be the buzzkill there, Allie. But
yeah, really. Well, you know what I was gonna do? I was gonna say we were trying to get control, and you were playing the bumper rotation of a certain very famous artist that hails from my neck of the original woods. I was just gonna go, there must be some kind of way out of here. So there you go. Now you can shut down the show.
Well, you know what? Jesus is going to come back one day soon, it feels like. But until then, I imagine there's going to be outbreaks of things like monkeypox. Yes, absolutely. Are we? Did we lose her? We still?
Nope, I'm still here.
Okay. You said, are we still friends?
Are we still friends?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. But yeah, in all of this madness, I want to know how the kids got it. I'm glad nobody's dying from it, but how did the kids get it? And that's why I'm saying lock and load and hold my beer.
Yeah, no doubt. Allie, appreciate you. You have a great weekend, my friend.
You too, sir.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Well, there it is. So I feel like, listen, Boomer, I know for a fact if your dad can design the Rightside Radio logo, he could also design the Monkeypox Task Force patch.
He could. I think I'm gonna get him on that this weekend.
I think you should, and if you can get Task Force Monkeypox a certified patch, we'll send it in and see if they'll accept it.
I think I know somebody that can actually make the patch too.
Oh, you know what? I know a guy who's got a thing that can do that.
Yep.
Yeah. I know a guy knows a guy. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
All right. Well, all right. Listen, enough of that. Here's the bottom line for me. Aside from Allie's very prescient point there about how'd the kids get it, and I'm going to hope that's just simply because somebody who had it gave them a hug and told them they loved them, and it transmitted through that. Anyway, the other piece of this though is, after the last 3 years that we've been through, do you really trust that when the Biden administration declares a public health emergency, or for that matter, when it's followed closely by like Governor Hochul of New York, or Governor Newsom of California, or Governor Pritzker of Illinois, when you see the declarations coming from leadership like that, do you for a second think that they've got ulterior motives? I do. Keep your eyes on it. Keep your eyes on it. But right now, Task Force Monkeypox is on the job. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Coming up next, you got the great one, Mark Levin. He'll be with you. Boomer and I are back here at 2 on Monday for another great week. You guys have an amazing weekend and stay solid, conservative, and just plain right, you bunch of right-side ruffians. Take care.